What's the scariest thing that's ever woken you up during the middle of the night? A gurgling sound and the smell of a warm shart. I thought I crapped the bed, but it turns out the city sewer system backed up and flooded into my house. In hindsight, crapping the bed would have been much easier to clean up. Was a teenager living in a pitch black basement room. Had a strobe light because IDK teenagers are weird. Apparently the on-off switch was loose and moved to on. You don't know fear until you wake up in the middle of the night in a pitch black room with a strobe light flashing. Woke up in the middle of the night to what I thought was my blanket all crammed up between me and the wall. It was uncomfortable, so I went to move it, but instead of a blanket I touched human skin. Of course I immediately freaked the duck out and am now wide awake wondering what the to do as I lay in the dark with this thing laying next to me. So I gather up my courage, reach over and grab it and yank it up so I can see what it is. It was storming and lightning flashed very dramatically at the same moment while I realize I'm holding my own arm. I guess I'd been sleeping on my arm and it went so numb that I couldn't even tell I was touching it. Haven't laughed that hard in a while. At uni, my bedroom was on the ground floor of the house. I was woken up around 4 AM by scratching and heavy breathing at my window, which I tried to ignore for 20 minutes hoping that whoever it was would duck off. It was a long 20 minutes of trying not to it myself. Off they did not duck. So I decided to go out the front door to kindly ask them to cease their scratching and heavy breathing. Turned out it was one of my housemates who was absolutely off his tits. Lost his keys, wallet and phone on a night out. He thought scratching on my window would be better than knocking on the door or ringing the doorbell. Woke up to the sound of kids laughing outside my bedroom window. It was 3 AM. I opened the window, living on the first story of an apartment, and came face to face with a coyote. Edit. Here is the sound I heard. Edit 2. No, this is not my video. My almost 4-year-old standing at my bedside staring right at me. Once my eyes were open she said, "I brought the monsters in here," then went back to bed. Thanks kid. I had you so they'd go in your room. This past summer I woke up to the sound of someone screaming in the most horrible way. I went onto my balcony and saw a woman laying on the ground right outside my building holding her stomach with people standing around her. She got into an argument with another woman at a crosswalk and the other woman pulled a shotgun out of her trunk and shot her in the stomach. The victim survived. Edit. I'm sure the shotgun is what woke me up, but I just remember hearing the screaming. Edit 2. Lightning hit the tree outside my house. The bang was so loud I saw myself in the third person and honestly thought I died. I can't even explain how that happened. Woke up groggy, out of sleep paralysis. Went to push off the bed and realized my left arm is gone. There's no way right. Maybe my arm had just fallen out. Reach over with my right arm to feel for my left arm and freak the duck out because all I feel is my torso. Genuinely freak out for a minute checking and rechecking. My arm is literally gone. And then I felt human skin above my head. My arm had fallen asleep over my head and behind the pillow. Apparently my armpit had played a little joke on my brain and reported back as being a shoulder stump. 2 cats mating under my window. My god. It sounded like a convention of demons. Was up blasting music at about 3 AM drinking by myself. I live in the country so it's all rich snobs' cottages and empty forests, so nobody around. I go to watch a movie and turn off my stereo, and as I did I heard footsteps somewhere in my house. Not light but like a work boot. I drunkenly grab the most weapon-y thing I had, which was a pocket knife, and go running out. For some ungodly reason there was a deer in my kitchen. Just standing there. It had somehow gotten in somewhere, but the thing is that everything was locked. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking how I got it out, my kitchen is in the back of the house, so I just opened the back door and it just walked out. Didn't freak out or nothing. Just went out calmly. Figured it should have wigged right out though. Never seen the deer again. Or other deer near civilization anyways. My brother's friend broke into the house once while I was sleeping on the couch. And I woke up to him in the fridge. I didn't know who he was, so I stayed silent. I was 9 I think. Edit. He was not in my fridge. I was 11. Woke up to the sound of screaming and shouting. My cousin, who was living with us, was about 17 and in my room holding the door from being opened. On the other side of the door was my mother screaming to be let in. My sister was in the bunk under mine and she was crying. Suddenly my cousin comes to and opens the door. My mom rushes in and asks my cousin and us if we were okay. There was commotion in the hallway and living room, but I couldn't tell what it was. When I peeked out of the doorway, I saw my stepfather holding a small .22 caliber rifle looking out the windows frantically. Suddenly cops show up and start arresting my stepdad. My mom is yelling at the police and I'm sitting there with my cousin and sister like WTF. We all notice the broken sliding glass door and suddenly realize there are large bullet holes all over our house, through the entertainment center, and above the couch where my cousin was sleeping just minutes before. I guess what happened is someone was shooting at some people walking by our apartment and the stray bullets all hit our place. My cousin woke up and immediately thought people were inside shooting us, so he ran to the kids' room and kept anyone from coming in like a badass. My mom woke up and immediately thought to check on us but couldn't get into the room because of my cousin. My stepdad grabbed his gun out of instinct. The cops showed up and assumed my stepdad was the shooter and arrested him. All in all, a pretty fun night. Weird metallic scraping noises coming from my bedroom window for nights on end. It freaked me out so much that eventually I stopped sleeping in my room. Long story short, I discovered a few years afterwards that someone had tried to pry open my window so much that they had scraped the paint off the outside of the window frame. Edit. Forgot to mention earlier, but the latch was also broken as well. And it took my grandmother a good bit of effort to force open the window the day I climbed on the roof. I'm a professional firefighter. When we are on shift at night, we are allowed to sleep. It's pretty routine to get woken up for any kind of emergency that we respond to, from shootings, to car wrecks, to house fires with people trapped. When we catch a run, the bunk room lights come on, and there's a very gentle beeping sound that is meant to wake us gently, instead of jolting us awake and spiking our blood pressure, before the dispatcher goes on the air to tell us where we are going and why. A few weeks ago at around 3 AM, the lights came on and there was a different sound. It was an alarm that sounded like the world was ending. We all sprang out of our bunks, wide-eyed, ready for battle. And the dispatcher came on the air to tell us that the National Weather Service had issued a winter storm warning, effective 2 days in the future, in a city that's no stranger to winter weather. We were very confused. My sister laughing. She had been dead for about a week. I was staying at my parents' house and was just sleeping on the couch. My dad had passed out in his armchair on the other side of the house and my mom was upstairs in the bedroom. My sister's laughter came from the kitchen, which was sort of between where we all were, and sure enough we all converged on the kitchen because we all heard it. Needless to say, we were freaking out a bit. Her phone, which had died, was plugged into a charger in the kitchen. It had turned itself on and begun playing a video of her laughing and playing with her new puppy. We all just stood there and listened to it, then turned it off and went to bed without really talking about it. None of us believe in paranormal stuff and I'm a real atheist skeptic, but it was really jarring tech-based oddity to wake up to. Well, it's not nearly as scary as the other things that people have talked about, but I like to listen to YouTube on autoplay while I sleep sometimes. One time I woke up in the middle of the night to some of the most ear-grating, terrifying sounds I've ever heard. After spending a bit of time freaking out, I realized it was from my phone. Apparently, YouTube decided to play songs by some random artist I've never heard of called Passenger of It. Look that up at your own risk, which is some sort of demonic scraping black metal breakcore band. Scared the it out of me. Edit. Found the song that was playing. It's called Staple Tape Worms on my D. Rippin' Box. Also THX for the silver. A loud bang downstairs and then my dog zooming to the front door and snarling. By the time I had grabbed my gun and got downstairs, whoever it was already peeling out of the driveway. I guess they assumed the house we had just moved into was still unoccupied and got the scare of their lives. Looks like they were trying to kick the door down to gain access. My good boy got some steak the next day as a reward. There was this one time. So I live in southwest Colorado and during the summer months it gets pretty warm. One night, I was sleeping with my window open. Mind you, it's one of those upscale whole rental apartments where the windows don't even have screens. So there I am, dead as asleep, when all of a sudden I just am jolted awake. By what? I had no idea. I lay there a few seconds trying to gain my bearings when I feel this heavy thing step onto my chest and walk up towards my face. It was like having a huge cat on me. It's making this sound that kinda sounds like your cute ex-girlfriend when she snores, but much faster. As I feel what I could only imagine were whiskers tickling my chin. I'm screaming in my head, don't duck, I move. Stay still. You'll get your face ripped off. WTF is happening? I teased Chupacabra. Once the whiskers were satisfied that I didn't smell like food, it wandered toward the edge of my bed. I didn't waste any time. I threw the blankets off myself, forcing basically the whole mattress, all my bedding and Chupa ducking Cabra onto the floor. I stand on the edge of my bed and do a catwalk from bed to bedside table to computer desk until I can finally find the light switch. When I turned the switch, I wasn't prepared for what I saw on the floor. It was the biggest raccoon I'd ever seen in my life, just kinda staring up at me like, "Da fuck bro, that's bright." Getting him out of the house was a whole other story entirely. Cat knocked a glass of water off my windowsill and it landed on my head. Thought someone had broken and tried to beat me to death because I thought all the water was blood. My cat is an asshole. I heard a gigantic crash, which I presume to mean my cat just found a way to knock my TV or my entire gaming shelf over. But when I went out to see, nothing was wrong. Not even the slightest hint something had fallen. I woke up in the middle of the night to a rustling sound at my bedroom window. I wasn't sure if I had dreamed the noise or not and stared sleepily at the window for a few seconds. Very slowly my window began to slide open. Long thin fingers gripping the glass. My eyes widened. My heart pounded. My breathing froze. For a moment I was paralyzed with pure fear. Something was silently sliding my window open in the dead of night and coming into my room. My fear soon turned into some kind of primal aggression. As quietly as I could, I rose out of my bed and reached for the baseball bat underneath it. The dark shape was now climbing through my curtains, its lanky arms reaching down to my floor, crawling, almost slithering in. I turned on the light and took a few fast steps toward the creature with a baseball bat raised ready to deal a crushing blow when I suddenly stopped. It was my little sister, high as a ducking kite. She had forgot her keys, was locked out, and didn't want to wake my parents in the middle of the night while stoned. She thought all this was pretty funny and proceeded to go to her room and pass out. I laid in bed and stared at my ceiling for a while, adrenaline still pumping, thinking about my almost confrontation with some sort of alien monster rapist demon, which turned out to be my stoned sister. Thankfully I turned the light on before I swung. My cat, who was sleeping at my feet, starting to hack up a hairball. Nothing has ever woken me up quicker than hearing my cat about to puke all over my bed in the middle of the night. My boyfriend screaming at me to wake the duck up. Was a car on fire pretty much right outside our bedroom window. How I managed to sleep through the exploding tire sound is beyond me. That it was loud. A baby crying when we didn't have a baby at the time. Just moved into a new house. Not really unpacked other than a mattress on the floor. Startle awake in the middle of the night. I'm wide awake and I don't know why. Then I hear this faint noise on the hardwood floor followed by a small thunk. I wait. Same furtive noise followed by another thunk. This sporadically goes on for a couple of minutes and I decide to investigate it. Go across the hall fully expecting to find someone trying to stealthily rob us or something. Nope. One of the damn cats had taken a round makeup container out of one of the boxes and was baiting it slowly across the empty hardwood floor. I suffer from sleep paralysis. One night I was having an episode where I was stuck on my bed and I heard a loud noise in the dream. When I woke up, I looked out into my room and saw what looked like a man sprawled over my chair, and the bang I heard I figured was him landing there from crawling in my window. Turns out the clothes arranged on my chair made the silhouette look like a guy. Took a while to fall back asleep. This happened like when I was 8 or 9, and sometimes when I went to bed I would make hand shadows in the wall next to me. Well, one time I did this. I raised my hand up and started waving it like you do when saying hello to someone. But after I put my hand down, a different shadow appeared and started waving back. This really scarred me and I always slept facing away from that wall until we moved out of the house. Old habits die hard. Incoming enemy mortar fire. I woke up to the air raid siren blaring from outside my window. It was like 5 AM. It couldn't be any drill or test at this time in the morning. In my half awake state I sort of freaked out, wondering if this was it and could this be how I was going to die. Turns out some kid next door of my not very soundproof apartment was just playing with some sort of toy that came with the air raid siren as one of the sounds. Figured that out cause a few minutes later while I was panicking the sound turned into a loud police siren instead. Then an ambulance siren. Then some other siren. I went back to sleep. I had a burglar break into my apartment through one of the windows in the front while I was sleeping in the back bedroom. I could hear them working the window open and trying to be quiet as they eased past the mini blinds. I got up, took out my revolver and cocked it. In the quiet apartment, like 3 AM, the sound was really loud and distinctive. The guy breaking in jumped back out the window and ran off. I remember putting on my bathrobe and going outside and the police were already out there. One of my neighbors had called them. Standing there in their spotlight in my bathrobe with a big revolver, the cops asked, "Did you get him?" It was pretty surreal. Sleep paralysis. Woke up feeling electrocuted. Hearing voices and pounding on the walls. I always get a little jumpy the first night I am alone when my spouse travels for work, which is pretty frequent. One night, I turned off the light and started falling asleep. About 10 minutes after I turned off the light, I thought I was still awake. I opened my eyes for some reason and saw a large shadow, human-sized, dart from the door of my room across to the window on the other side. I sat bolt upright and screamed out loud. Turned on the light and nothing was there. I did not think I was asleep, but it is possible. The orientation of the windows would not have allowed for a shadow moving in that direction. No idea what happened. Could have been dreaming. Never happened again. Not that scary in retrospect, but that weird period of transition between sleep and awake can be disorienting. One night about 2 AM, I don't know why I woke up, but I did, and immediately saw a giant spider on the wall, like the kind of dinner plate sized monster they have in Australia. I freaked out and scrambled out of bed screaming, which woke up my husband and made him freak out. And then I woke up fully and realized I'm a ducking idiot. He hadn't woken up fully though, so it was kind of hard explaining to him that I thought saw a giant spider, but it's okay. It's gone now. A few months later, the same thing happened where he woke me up, scared shitless, because a giant spider was on the wall. It was just his imagination. We're both kinda dumb sometimes. I am still a sleepwalker to this day, but when I was 17 I sleepwalked down 2 floors of my house into our concrete basement. It was all wet because it had recently flooded and we had rolled all the carpet up onto one side of the room. I tripped over the carpet while walking around down there and I woke up alone, in the dark, suddenly falling down onto the wet floor, not sure where I was. I was terrified because I had been in my bed what felt like minutes before. I did it to myself, but it the scariest way I've ever woken up. Female. Lived alone in a basement suite in a slightly run-down neighborhood. Woke up with a jolt to the sound of a man, very loudly and very clearly declaring, "Clams," from my living room while I was next door in my bedroom. I froze in terror, trying to think of what weapon I could improvise from my nightstand. Like, jacket useful within reach. I could have thrown my novel or a tin of muscle rub or tried to joust him with a floor lamp. I resigned myself to trying to use my blankets like some sort of gladiator net when he eventually came to kill me. Except he didn't move or say anything else for ages. So I slowly crept to the door, then through the hall, then bolted to the kitchen for a knife, then to the living room. There was nobody. Doors and windows were all completely locked and sealed. It was just the weirdest dream I've ever had. The end. Banging on the front door of our family home at 2 AM when I was 6 years old. My dad had a cricket bat at the ready, only to come face to face with a dog walker who kindly informed us that our backyard was completely engulfed in flames. Our neighbor had chickens and had been burning waste. Thought the fire was out, only for a spark to catch and for a huge fire to steadily spread across both of our yards. I also witnessed the bravest action I've ever seen a human being carry out that night. One of the firefighters asked my dad if there was anything flammable in our shed, which was completely encased in fire. There was a small gas canister for barbecues. Without hesitation, the firefighter runs into the shed, disappears for a few seconds, then returns carrying the canister. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen. When I was about 10, I went with my parents to stay in this cabin in the mountains in North Carolina. The cabin was beautiful, however, it was 2-story and the staircase was outside. Also, the owner asked us to feed his cat, for which the food was kept in a plastic, hard to open barrel. Anyways, because I was so old then, I wanted to sleep on the top floor by myself. My parents said it was fine and that I should just stomp on the floor if anything was wrong during the night. Well, one of the nights, I heard something that sounded like someone breaking in and totally freaked out, especially because I was by myself. Started stomping on the floor that my parents thought there was a herd of elephants above them. They came up, didn't see anything, but because I was so freaked out, I went to sleep in the bed with my mom downstairs and my dad took the bed upstairs. Well, I guess in the middle of the night, he too heard something. He went to investigate and the burglar was actually a raccoon that had broken into the cabin. It took off a screen on the door and was now rolling the barrel of cat food around the floor, trying to open it. Big ass centipede crawled onto my hand. I was renting a house. It was my first ever place by myself and it was my first night staying there. I didn't have the internet there yet, nor did I have cell phone service. I got woken up with the sound of someone kicking in my back door. Stunned, shocked, I didn't know what to do. Do I just stay quiet and wait? Hope it goes away? WTF do I do? I really had no options. I didn't have a gun or any means to protect myself, especially being upstairs. Most of the things I could use to protect myself were downstairs and in boxes at that. So I shouted I had a gun and I was calling the cops. It took a few times of yelling it, but whoever it was eventually stopped. Somehow that person didn't break the door frame to enable them to get into the house. I still don't know how to this day. It was ducked and had to be replaced and also reinforced. Also, in that same house, woken up to multiple gunshots and a drive-by shooting right behind my house. Are the memories. It was a dark and stormy night. No, really. I had watched The Ring on a large old style CRT TV that was getting pretty hinky. The show scared the it out of me. When it was over I was a little drunk and fell asleep on the couch. Some point later, deep in sleep, the dog cut loose with a huge loud ass terrified snarl bark howl. I sit bolt upright, totally dazed. At that moment there is a smash of thunder and the TV comes on super loud to white noise. Duck me, nope. I'm still pretty drunk. I fell backwards knocking over the couch and didn't even pause. Scrambled to my feet. Hit the front door so hard I cracked the door frame. Busted my forehead open and concussed myself. Did I stop? No. Somehow I got the door open and sprinted right out into the pounding thunderstorm in my tighty whities. Still drunk, now covered in blood, sprinted across the yard and blindly ran right onto, and sliding over the hood of the constable's car who parks on our street to do paperwork. Did I stop? Nope. Ran right across the street into the neighbor's brick mailbox and that stopped me. When I finally go out of cuffs, back from the hospital, 2 stitches either head, 3 across the chest from the mailbox. The TV is off and the dog is sitting in the living room with that. WTF was that? Look. I experience night terrors when I'm feeling stressed. Some of the scariest ones I've experienced have included hands appearing then disappearing on the window of my bedroom, a large, as in socket ball sized, spider hanging above me while in bed, my partner's face sitting silently on the wall next to the bed. This one prompted screaming that he look at me immediately to make sure he still had his face, and shadowy silhouettes staring at me from across the room or on the ceiling. But the scariest thing to wake me up that was real was actually pretty recent. We experienced incredibly strong winds overnight last week and my partner and I woke up to the house literally vibrating. A creak or two is normal, but this was constant shaking. It wasn't raining, no storms, no tornadoes expected, just insanely powerful wind. I've told this story before, but here it is again. I moved into my first apartment and got a cat. My 3rd night there I'm woken by the sound of my kitten seemingly screaming in pain. I frantically search the apartment to find him and he's just sitting on the couch, sleeping. Confused I go back to bed, Few minutes later he is howling again. I go to the living room and still, he's sleeping on the couch. Then another scream. He looks at me and immediately hides under the couch. I realize the scream is coming from the bedroom. I search everywhere. Under the bed, in the closet, in the adjoining bathroom. Nothing. The next scream I realize is coming from the back hall. I go to my door and look through the peephole. The old woman who lives below me and shares the back hall with me is standing on my landing, staring at the wall with a blank look on her face, screaming like a cat. I found out later, at that moment, that she was pretty severely mentally ill. Other than this instance, she was the perfect neighbor. I miss her dearly. Woke up from a horrible nightmare about a skin peeling demon thing to see the shadow of a man in my room and something crawling on my arm. Was a cardboard cutout I was surprised with 3 nights prior and a freaking gecko just coming to say hi. I slept on the floor in my brother's bedroom for the rest of the night.